All right, this is going to be a great one. Diet variation, aka feast-famine cycles. Look, this is something I discovered hard way or interesting way, probably a God way. But seasonal variation I actually discovered with my wife, meaning that we were trying to, this was a few years ago now, we were trying to get her into ketosis and she just wouldn't go in. Her numbers were horrible. I mean, she would get 0.6, 0.7, but back down to 0.3. I mean, it was ridiculous, even with really low carbs. So I ended up taking her out of ketosis and moving her back to a higher healthy carbohydrate diet. A couple months later, I put her back into ketosis. And lo and behold, her numbers soared. Went back into ketosis. Did that 2, 3, I think probably actually 3 or 4 times each time, moving her in and out of ketosis. She actually got more and more efficient at burning fat. All right, that was test 1. And then of course, whatever I learned there, I start taking to the doctor group and start saying, try this. But even before that, I discovered something called weekly variation. And this was through my own search. So here I am, probably a year or more into ketosis. And I start noticing that I start getting some belly fat. And with that, of course, I did what most people do. I started reducing my carbohydrates even more. I literally got down below 10 carbohydrates a day. It wasn't getting better. As a matter of fact, it was actually getting worse. I literally was getting more belly fat. And then I noticed I was actually losing muscle. So then I start digging. And then I found something from the bodybuilders. They realized that carb days fires up the fat burning again and actually starts protecting your muscle. So this was not a new concept, right? This was something the bodybuilders actually knew for years. But then I started putting that together with other things that I had been researching, one of which was low carb diets and ketosis can cause insulin resistance. And of course I thought, that seems like nonsense, but now these two worlds were coming together. What I learned was this: during low carbohydrate diets, too long, I should say, or even ketosis, the body will go into a starvation mode, or at least a mode where it wants to hold on to its fat. So follow me. In ketosis or a very low carb diet, the body, remember, we're forcing it to use most of its energy, 95, 98% of its energy from fat, because the cells can only use 2 things, sugar or fat. So in this state of ketosis, we move it down to where it's mostly using fat. So what does an intelligent body do? It says, look, I need this fat to survive, so I'm going to be more efficient at burning it. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, because then we will start holding on to fat just like I did, right? So what it does is it'll even start plugging up even fat cells with water, etc., anything to slow down fat metabolism in case it needs the fat to survive. So what if we throw in 1 or 2 carb days a week, higher healthy carb days, and get the body to fire the fat burning up again? It works. The bodybuilders knew it worked, right? So that is how we started as a group of doctors utilizing carb days. But it goes beyond just fat. What we realized is if we can keep someone's mitochondria efficient at using fat, we can keep the inflammation low. So this isn't just a fat burning thing. So someone leaner like myself, yes, these carb days still benefit you dramatically, even for energy. So we want our mitochondria to become more efficient. So weekly variation or feast-famine cycles, and you'll understand that in a minute. I use an example of 5-1-1, meaning 5 days in, say, ketosis, like you are now, and intermittent fasting. So if you haven't watched those videos yet, if you don't know what I'm talking about, under videos, they're here. And if you're on the Fasting for a Purpose group, they are under announcements. So look for those videos, and you will see one on ketosis and one on intermittent fasting. But we would do 5 days of that, and then we would do one fast day where we only eat 1 meal. Okay, there's the fast day, and then we do the feast day, what I just told you about. So my feast days, look, I always think I'm going to eat 3 meals that day instead of my normal 1 or 2 in my intermittent fasting day. But it typically doesn't work out. But we typically on the weekend will go to brunch as a family. So we do eat earlier, maybe noon or 1, because typically I'm eating at 3 or 4. And then so invariably then I'll eat more in that eating window, say from noon or 1 to maybe 6, 7, or 8 at night. So my goal is to eat more calories. Why? I'll tell you in a second. Obviously because I'm feasting and it reminds my body it's not starving, but there's a scientific reason for that as well. Number two, I'm trying to either eat more protein or carbs. And by the way, if you say to yourself, well, I don't do good with too many carbs because I have some other issues. Okay, great. Use higher calories and higher protein. Either one works. The fact is look, I already kind of taught you this in some of the past videos. Autophagy is the famine day, the fast, right? Meaning that the body will eat its bad stuff. If we have these three things happening, either low protein, that will stimulate autophagy, low calories or no calories, that's basically a fast, or a partial fast like I talked about last night. If you didn't see last night's video on the fasting mimicking diet, check it out. Worth watching. That's the fast that I'm doing this September 23rd. And then the last one is low carbohydrates. You can get some autophagy even in a ketosis diet. But those three things stimulate the autophagy. Now look, the opposite stimulate a pathway called mTOR, which is a growth pathway. This is the bodybuilder pathway, right? They want to stimulate growth. But we don't want to do that long term. Just like we don't want to stay in autophagy long term. You would end up affecting your immune system, your organs, your health in general. mTOR, this pathway, the feast pathway, no different. Bodybuilders, you don't want to stay there. It's bad for you. You age prematurely. This mTOR pathway, no doubt, is a growth pathway, and you will end up with multiple inflammatory types of conditions if you stay there. High protein, you don't want it long term. High calories, you don't want that long term. And you don't want high carbohydrates long term. So the opposite, right? Autophagy, mTOR, growth pathway, right? Body eating pathway. The point is this: we have people camped in both camps. These people don't like these people don't like these people. The bottom line is, I believe they're both right. And I believe that we need feast and famine cycles. Our DNA is set up for it. The doctor I interviewed last night basically said that exact thing. So when we take 5 days periodically and do low calories, like a fasting mimicking diet, or no calories, a water fast, we are set up for that. And our body goes through amazing healing. And we've discussed it, and we're going to continue to discuss it. But the opposite is true. If we take 1 day a week and feast, we fire up a growth pathway. And healing can occur too. You just don't want to stay there too long. And even when we do it for maybe 7 days, in a whole month, which I'm going to get there in a second. So we want short terms in the autophagy pathway. We want short term in the mTOR pathway. Feast, famine. I just did that backwards. Feast, famine. You get the point. This is my feast, famine cycles or diet variation concept. It can be done weekly. And by the way, 4-2-1 is more of what I typically do. I'll typically do 2 fasts a week, and probably even 3, where I either eat one time, typically 1 meal, but sometimes no meals until the next day. That's permissible as well. And you can have 1 feast day. Some people do better with 2 feast days. So the bottom line is any variation weekly fires back up the fat burning machine. And by the way, ladies, if you've heard this, that intermittent fasting, or even ketosis is not good for women. Now, you just need more variation. Simple as that. It works. And I can say the same for you adrenal people. I can say the same for you thyroid people, hormone challenged people who say, oh, you shouldn't do that if you have adrenal problems. No. You just need more variation. You see, straight ketosis, no good for you people. Straight intermittent fasting, no good. A fast without this preparation that we're talking a month prior would be no good. So absolutely, again, this is why I say work with a practitioner, because these are very advanced concepts, obviously, that we've worked with for some years and really have refined. All right, now, monthly variation. This also came from my wife and my son's girlfriend. See, a lot of lab rats in the house. But they were discussing certain things. I think she was more so than my wife, cravings before her period, and at least the need to eat higher carbohydrates. They crave more chocolate before their period, etc. And my response was, listen to your innate intelligence, listen to your body. And I said, it must have a reason for desiring that. And then I went back to my office and my brain clicked, and then I started searching. Out of it came this. 7 days, because what I found was 7 days of higher healthy carbohydrate diets does magic for the hormones. The craving is for a reason. During that time before the period, there's so many hormone transitions that are being made. For example, T4 is a non-active thyroid hormone. It has to convert to T3. And so I'm just going to write that. It's so darn important. So T4... The dogs, you guys love the dogs. They do this all the time. Knock it off. We're on Facebook Live. Unless you're going to say something intelligent, stop talking. All right.
So
if they have something better to say than that, I'll bring them on. T4 is the stored hormone. It has to convert to the active hormone. That's the one that actually attaches to the cell's receptors, gets in the cell, and makes you more efficient fat burner, feel good, etc., have the energy. But this conversion, it has to take place, most of which takes place in the liver. But if that conversion doesn't take place, one of the problems is your blood work looks normal to your doctor, but you don't feel normal. But here's the point, is you need insulin to make that transition. So when insulin goes really low, like on a low carbohydrate diet or ketosis, if you're healthy, no problem. You still have enough to make the transition. But if you're already struggling in some aspect, perhaps with that transition or with your thyroid at all, and it may not even be diagnosed, but the point is now your insulin goes low, and now you're not transferring even more. So you're not converting it at a much lower level, and you feel like crap. Okay, so what we do during this 1 week is we up the carbs, and protein can do it, but carbs are in this case more effective. And when we up the carbs, now all of a sudden we're making these hormone transitions and hormone conversions much better. It works the same with estrogen. Estrogen and many other hormones need insulin. So therefore the increase of carbohydrates increases the insulin and then helps with those hormone conversions when you need them most, the week before your period. And men, you're not off the hook, because trust me, if your wife is having this issue, you might want to just do the high carb week at the same time. But there's a lot of other benefits of doing even a week at a time. It's kind of like doing a fast, right? We're doing daily fasting and getting some autophagy, but when we do one feast day, we get some benefit from that anabolic state, that growth state. But what if we did it for a week a month? It benefits people. So fasting for more often, whether it's a partial fast or, as I described last night, fasting mimicking diet, periodically, man, it helps you live longer healthy. But so do these temporary anabolic states. All right, so this is all based on a concept of adaptation, meaning that your body does everything to adapt and survive. That's it. So really, when we're doing these feast-famine cycles, what really more and more studies that I've dug as I'm writing a book on the whole concept show is the magic is adaptation. Let me give you an example you can understand. Okay, exercise. When you first start an exercise program, right, it's like magic. It's like you work, you feel better, you get stronger, everything, and then you're doing the same thing, and the results, do they get better or worse? They typically stay the same, sometimes worse. You change exercises or even go to a new gym, right? Or you're watching late night television and you order this new thing and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best. Maybe it's P90X that you start or something. Is it the exercise, or is it just that you made a change? It's just that you made a change. That's why people go, I went to a vegetarian diet and oh my God, I feel so good, and now I've been a vegetarian for this many years. Not a good idea. You'll get sick. Paleo people, I'd say the same to you. High protein, oh my God, I felt so much better. All of a sudden, years later, you're driving that mTOR pathway, growth factor. Not good. Studies show it. So everyone's lining up in their camps on the diet. No, man, the magic is the variation. The diet variation is the trick. So I'm all for a vegetarian diet, short term. I'm all for, now we're talking seasonal. You see what I'm saying? Now I'm all for ketosis in a period. I'm all for the paleo diet for a period. The American Indians, they were like vegetarians in the summer. Of course, in the winter, they were full-blown ketosis. Same with the Hunza people. They thought they were vegetarians, the British did, when they would go visit them in the summer. But in the winter, they were full-blown ketosis. Variation. Our DNA is set up for it. If we study ancient cultures, this is what they were forced to do. Seasonal changes, environmental changes, forced us to change our diet. Today, we have the ability to not change our diet. I have a study in my PowerPoints I love to show that scientists believe, when they're looking at this now, that they believe it's leading to diseases, even cancer. The fact that we're not varying our diet. So I know the diet worked for you at one point, but it's time to shift. The magic is in the adaptation, and what happens in the adaptation is hormone optimization. You optimize your hormones. Your cells become more sensitive to your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone. That's the key, not taking hormones. We've got to get ourselves listening. Oh yeah, when you switch your diet, you actually get this growth hormone rise. Why? Because your body's adapting to a new diet. Even your microbiome adapts. So that's the exercise example, is when you change exercises, you get this immediate response. Exercise variation. Why? Your body has to adapt to something new. And through the adaptation, it starts raising up growth hormone. Your cells become more sensitive to your anabolic hormones because it wants to live. It wants to adapt. You see, same with the diet. I'll give you one more example. People are into the hot-cold thing. When you go into cold, your body thinks it's going to die. So it upregulates this hormone called norepinephrine. It's magic because it downregulates inflammation. It knocks down all these bad pathways. It's trying to live. It upregulates growth hormone to heal, to live. And you come out of the cold after 3 minutes. You didn't die, but all these hormones are optimized. You live longer. And then you go into heat. The same thing happens. So people get the fact that hot-cold adaptation to survive, hormone optimization is what's left. No different with dietary change. Exercise, hot, cold. I could give you 1,000 examples of this. You know, in my PowerPoints, I had an example of when they took mice that couldn't lose weight loss resistance, and they moved them into cold. They saw a change. What happened was they break through. All of a sudden, they would start losing weight when they moved them in and out of cold to hot. And what they realized is a certain bacteria in the gut was actually upregulated, and it helped them actually lose weight. So we know that the adaptation with dietary changes also changes the microbiome, which has a profound effect on our immune system and even how our brain works. So this is a huge concept, man. I mean, it's portrayed here in 15, 20 minutes. I'm telling you, that's why I'm writing a book, because there's a lot of science. I mean, when I dug into it, it was unbelievable. But I can tell you this, it works clinically. And I have a group of doctors who would be like, look, this is the key. This is what works. I'm telling you, it's not about taking more hormones. It's about optimizing them, and this is the trick. Listen, how does this prepare you for the fast? Because this is how you become so fat adapted that day one, you're fat adapted. And day one, your mitochondria are optimized. And so now imagine how much autophagy you're getting in your fast and how much more stem cells. 10 times, 100 times, who knows? But the key is that we're going to optimize our fast because we're optimizing our hormones with the diet variation, the feast-famine cycles. There you go. So listen, next week we're going to talk about more about each fast so everyone can make their decisions. But I want to remind you that if you're going to do with me the fasting mimicking diet, you have to order your boxes this week. My team will re-put up the link here. So go to the link. I think it wasn't working for a period of time, but the link is working, I heard now. If you order this week, you get $25 off the boxes, and you get these boxes. Your food every day. Here's day one. Here's my food for day one. I like that. It's pretty easy. Here's my food for day two. And I can't wait, because when I've done partial fasts in the past, I didn't want to stop eating. It was hard. But it may be easier for me because this is all I get, and I know that. My brain knows that. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I'll talk to you about it. People, my wife's laughing, so someone's saying something.
No, I'm just thinking you and I are going to be our own test cases.
She's water fasting, right? She's water fasting. I'm fasting mimicking diet. Some of my docs are fasting mimicking diet. So we have a mix of us. We'll talk more about that next Wednesday. But stay tuned. Watch for the advertisements or
we're
advertisements.
We're going to have a love-hate relationship.
The announcements.
Fasting always. Fasting always brings out the best.
Yeah, fasting brings out the best. Yeah, who knows? Pray for
the worst. Yeah,
the worst.
Actually, yeah,
she gets a little hangry. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be eating my little olives, and she's gonna be pissed off at me
because I make no plans that week, and that is so.
Well, last time I was fasting, I had to go to like dinners and business dinners and that. I was like, I'm never doing that again. Matter of fact, this time I'm missing my friend Warren's party because I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah, I'm gonna sit home and watch movies.
Hold on, here we go. Because now I have to defend myself. Because see, I'm actually smarter than you in certain things. Because I would never, ever agree to go to dinner. Ever.
Yeah, I'm just that guy. I'm pretty. But okay, I'm drawing the line. At least her and I are both fasting this time. So, anyways, listen. Share the videos. Let's come on. I thought for sure we'd have 20,000 people this time, but actually our Facebook advertisement thing got shut down. It's another story. So I need you to share because look, the enemy comes in and robs and steals.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, definitely pray for us. We have a lot going on in our life, and it seems like every time we gear up for a fast,
always,
like there's just stuff.
Yeah,
and so
stuff.
we really, really appreciate your prayers.
Yeah. So we're, and I'm going to share a little bit this next week. I'll bring Mary on next week too. Just about, you don't want to just line up a fast for physical. I mean, I'm telling you about all these physical things, but I'm telling you, you need breakthrough in your life. Someone that you know needs breakthrough in their life, turn them on to this, because there's nothing like fasting. Look, religious groups across the planet forever have disagreed on everything, but one thing: fasting. Can you believe that? Fasting. That is in common with everything. It is just absolutely that powerful. So we're going to talk more about that next week. I'll see you next Wednesday, same time, same place, and maybe sooner than that. So, all right.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Good night.